All right, let's dive into Aster DM Healthcare. We've got quite a collection to go through today. Financial reports, investor presentations, and even some clips from their recent earnings call.
Wow.
All of this is about their performance, specifically in the third quarter of fiscal year 2025. But we're going deeper than just those numbers.
Okay.
We really want to understand their strategies, the challenges they're facing, and what all of this tells us about the future of Aster DM.
Sounds good.
And I think the biggest headline here is that Aster DM is actually merging with Quality Care India Limited, or CQIL.
Yeah, that's a big one. That merger could make them one of the top 3 hospital chains in India.
Wow.
And I think it really reflects a broader trend that we're seeing in the Indian healthcare market, this move towards consolidation.
Makes you wonder what kind of impact it will have on the industry as a whole.
Right.
I mean, will patients see the benefits? Will this lead to lower costs or better access to care? Or will it just mean more competition?
Yeah, these are all great questions. I mean, mergers like this can definitely shake things up.
Absolutely.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Definitely. Speaking of shakeups, remember those record heat waves that India had in 2024?
Oh, yeah?
You know, those scorching temperatures might have actually shortened the flu season,
Really?
leading to a dip in those hospital occupancy rates.
Wow.
I was pretty surprised to see that in the reports.
That's, I mean, it's a great example of how factors outside of healthcare can impact the industry. Everything is connected.
Right.
The environment, the seasons, the economy.
It really shows just how complex it all is.
Yeah.
Speaking of complex, let's talk about Aster DM's Kerala cluster.
Okay.
So this is usually a strong performer for them, but this quarter they experienced slower growth.
Interesting.
And in the earnings call, they mentioned things like leadership changes and some shifts in medical tourism as possible factors.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And something else that really stood out to me from that call was the emphasis the CEO placed on attracting higher paying patients.
Oh, interesting.
It seems like they're shifting away from just volume and really focusing more on specialized, higher margin services. Makes you wonder if that's tied to the performance dip in Kerala.
It's a good point. It does seem like they're trying to position themselves very specifically within the market.
Yeah,
And speaking of positioning, let's talk about expansion.
right.
Aster DM is adding a whopping 1,700 beds to their network by 2027.
1,700. Wow.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of beds.
And they're really focusing on what they call brownfield projects, which means expanding existing facilities rather than building new ones from scratch.
Oh, okay.
And much of this is happening in places like Bangalore, Kochi, and Hyderabad.
Makes sense. That focus on those major metropolitan areas is, I think, a clear sign that they're anticipating the growing demand for quality healthcare, especially in India's growing urban centers.
It's like a bet on the future.
Yeah.
And looking at their performance recently, it seems like they're doing pretty well. Over the past 5 years, they've achieved 23% revenue growth.
Wow.
And a 38% jump in operating earnings.
They're really striking a balance between that growth and profitability,
Yeah.
which is really crucial in healthcare. You don't want to compromise on quality of care.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
And it seems like their lab business is playing a big part in their success.
Yeah.
They've achieved a 14% revenue increase,
Yeah.
and they actually turned profitable just last quarter.
Yeah, a profitable lab business. That could be a real game changer for them.
How so?
Well, it could give them a real competitive edge. It could allow them to offer patients more integrated services.
Interesting.
Think about it. Seamless diagnostics, treatment, and follow-up care all under one roof.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Yeah. Convenience is definitely a big factor. And here's another interesting trend I noticed. Aster DM is seeing a rise in the number of patients with insurance.
Oh. Yeah.
And it seems like India's expanding middle class and just a greater awareness of health insurance are playing a role in that.
That's a really interesting shift. It points to more people seeking that financial protection when it comes to their health.
Yeah.
Which is good news for the industry's growth overall.
Right.
But it also raises questions about affordability and access for those who are still uninsured.
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
It will be really fascinating to see how Aster DM navigates all of these changes in the Indian healthcare landscape.
Absolutely.
We've just scratched the surface here.
Yeah, there's a lot more to unpack. We have to talk about Aster DM's, commitment to environmental and social governance. We have to take a deeper look at their financials,
Oh, yeah.
and we have to really examine the potential challenges they might face, in the coming years.
Okay, so we've been talking about some of these big trends that are affecting Aster DM, but I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about their commitment to environmental and social governance, ESG.
Okay.
It's something that's getting a lot of attention lately, and I'm curious, what are your thoughts on Aster DM's approach to ESG?
Well, you know what really strikes me is that they're not just talking about sustainability. They're actually taking action to reduce their environmental impact.
Oh, interesting. Can you give us some examples?
Sure, sure. For example, at Aster CMI in Bangalore, 93% of their energy actually comes from renewable sources.
No.
And at Aster RV, which is also in Bangalore, it's 85%.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
It really seems like they're putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to sustainability. But what about the social side of things?
Yeah.
How does Aster DM approach social responsibility?
I mean, they seem to be taking that pretty seriously, too.
Hmm.
Their workforce is actually 64% female.
Wow.
And they've got 25% female representation on their board of directors.
Mm.
Plus, they're making healthcare more accessible with these mobile medical camps.
Yeah,
In fact, just in the last quarter, they reached over 138,000 people.
that's amazing. It's really encouraging to see a company taking those kind of steps, making a positive social impact. Okay, but let's get back to the numbers for a minute.
Okay.
Looking at their financials, what are some of the key takeaways for you about their overall performance?
Well, their profitability is definitely on the rise. Their adjusted profit after tax, excluding the merger-related costs, has actually surged 65% in the first 9 months of this fiscal year.
65%, that's huge.
It is.
So what's driving that kind of impressive profit growth?
It seems like it's a few things. Their core hospital business is doing really well. Operating margins have expanded to 22.3%.
Well,
And as we discussed, earlier, their lab business is now profitable. So this diversification of their revenue streams is a smart move.
yeah.
It's really paying off for them.
So diversification is never a bad thing,
No.
but of course every business faces challenges, right?
Oh, yeah.
So what kind of potential headwinds do you see for Aster DM?
Well, one challenge that they're facing is just increasing competition in the Indian healthcare market,
Hmm.
especially in Kerala, where, Aster DM has a strong presence.
Right.
So as more players enter the market, that could put pressure on prices and potentially impact profitability.
So they'll need to stay really nimble.
Right.
What else concerns you?
Well, managing costs is going to be critical, especially with these ambitious expansion plans.
Mm.
Healthcare is a capital-intensive industry,
Yeah.
and those 1,700 new beds are going to require significant investment.
Right. That's a good point. But it does sound like they're trying to be strategic with their investments. Focusing on these brownfield projects, which really makes the best use of their existing infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
And I was reading that they're also investing in technology. Like they have this new health app
Oh, interesting.
that could help to streamline operations and maybe improve the patient experience.
That's definitely a good step. Technology has the potential to be transformative in healthcare.
Yeah.
Telemedicine, AI. I mean, there's so much happening in that space.
It's hard to even keep up.
I know.
It sounds like Aster DM is really at kind of a crossroads here.
Okay.
They're experiencing this growth and profitability, but they're also facing that increased competition
Right.
and all the complexities that come with expanding their network.
Yeah, they're riding a wave right now.
Yeah.
But, they can't afford to get complacent. So it really raises the question, can they navigate this increasingly complex landscape and solidify their position as a true leader in the Indian healthcare market?
Right.
And that's something I think we can really explore when we start talking about their merger strategy.
Yeah, I'm ready to dive into that. The merger with Quality Care India Limited is a major move. I'm really eager to hear your analysis of that strategic decision. So we've covered a lot of ground with Aster DM Healthcare, but we've saved the most interesting part for last, I think. Their merger with Quality Care India Limited or CQIL.
Right.
It's a really big deal, and I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on what it all means for Aster DM.
Well, I think it's definitely a bold move, it has the potential to be like a game changer
Yeah.
for both companies, really. I
Yeah.
mean, by combining their strengths, they really could create a healthcare powerhouse in India.
That sounds pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Can we break that down a little?
Sure.
Like what are the specific benefits that you see Aster DM gaining from this merger?
Well, I think first and foremost, it gives them a much wider geographic reach.
Okay.
CQIL has a strong presence in South and Central India,
Uh-huh.
particularly in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. And these are key growth markets for healthcare.
Yeah.
So this merger kind of gives them immediate access.
So strategically, it kind of fills in some gaps in their
hmm
existing network.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. What other advantages do you see?
Well, it really strengthens their portfolio of hospitals. CQIL operates a number of well-regarded brands like Care Hospitals,
Hmm.
Kim's Health, and Evercare.
I've heard of those.
Yeah, and they have a really loyal patient base and a strong reputation for quality.
It's almost like they're adding like all-star players to their team.
Yeah, you could say that.
But the mergers can be tricky, right?
Oh, absolutely.
What are some of the challenges that you think they might face?
Well, I mean, integration is always a big hurdle.
Yeah.
Combining two large organizations with different cultures and different systems is never easy.
No.
So they'll really need to manage that process carefully to avoid any disruptions and make sure it's a smooth transition for everyone, for employees and for patients.
Right. They'll definitely need a good plan in place.
Yeah.
Anything else that worries you?
Well, they're also going to face a lot of regulatory scrutiny.
Oh,
Mergers of this scale often attract the attention of, competition authorities.
right.
So navigating that whole process and getting the necessary approvals it can be time consuming and costly.
Right. Right. It sounds like they have their work cut out for them,
Yeah.
but it sounds like they're pretty confident that they can manage these challenges.
I think so. I mean, they seem to have a very clear vision for the future.
Yeah.
They're really betting on the growth of the Indian healthcare market, and they're making moves to position themselves as a leader in the industry.
Hmm.
But will it pay off?
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, we've explored their financial performance. We've talked about these merger plans, their commitment to ESG, their vision for the future. We've covered a lot today.
We have. And while we've definitely uncovered some really interesting insights, the real deep dive, that's up to our listeners now.
Mhm.
Keep exploring the trends that are shaping the Indian healthcare landscape.
Right.
Keep questioning the strategies of, companies like Aster DM, and just stay curious about the future of this really vital industry.